Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. I am Dean, and once again, I have Devin with me.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully, everyone enjoyed their weekend. And honestly, I'm happy that I didn't do anything Pokemon related for like more than 3 consecutive days. So do not get a chance to ask me that question this time, Dean. I did nothing.
Not even the community day?
Nope. It was 93 degrees outside. I stayed indoors.
I caught one shiny within 2 minutes, and I'm like, I'm done.
No, I didn't get any shinies. I was too busy playing with family.
Ah.
And there goes our little secret for today's episode. So we got a special guest with us. We have the one and only Professor Glen. Glen, don't you say hi to everyone again?
Hello again, everybody. It's nice to talk with you all again. Hopefully sharing a few more words of wisdom.
Absolutely. If those who've listened to the podcast, we had Glenn on before talking about what it means to be a Pokemon professor. For those who haven't met him yet, he is actually my local professor in the Tampa Bay area. He's the one that really has gotten me into playing this game and the skills that I've learned and got to, and also just a mentor to me in the Pokemon professor community. So he's honestly one of the reasons why I'm still in this game and why I still come out to our local league and get involved the way I did. So just wanted to say thank you, Glenn, for everything you've done once again.
Blushing.
So the reason why we have Glenn on with this week's episode, because we're doing our little mini series on how to prepare the Rogue and how to get them ready to play in maybe more or less of a tournament setting, or at least more in a competitive setting. So we thought, why not just talk about what does it mean to be in a tournament, and let's bring someone who's been doing this for a while. Glenn is, as we mentioned in our previous episode, he's talked about his experience being an organizer and a judge, and he has plenty of experience both at the local level and at the major level in the regionals and internationals. And also, we just went through 2 local tournaments at our local shop this week too, so he's fresh off doing this topic as well. So this was like the perfect timing to ask Glenn back on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back. As you said, we did a league challenge on Thursday. This is our first league challenge post-rotation, so had some fun with Journey Together cards. And then 2 days later, Saturday, we had a League Cup to go along with it here. Also post-rotation, and I got to watch the Poison package in action, and it was even more exhilarating than seeing it on PTCG Live.
How many people were at the Cup?
It scanned 16. We ended up with 11 masters, 4 seniors and a junior. Nice healthy crowd, no buys. Everybody had a blast. It was as far as cups go, this one was super chill. I think the idea of folks trying to grind hard at this point in the season is kind of past. You've either done it or you haven't, and so they're just playing for fun right now.
Gotcha. So there was a big tournament in Spain this weekend. At time of recording, not all the deck lists have been out there. We do know the winner right now, which was Gardevoir again. Gardevoir made 2 of the top 8, and then everything else was kind of mixed up in between. This was a special event, not a regional. They're the same thing, basically. The biggest difference is just the pricing, and the prize support is a little different on the reward side. But that is kind of the goal for a lot of players, obviously, is to get prepared for events like that. And we'll talk about player expectations for tournaments and tournament organizers and judges, and then obviously the judges and tournament organizer expectation for players. That's going to be our big talking point today. But we definitely want to acknowledge that there was a tournament this weekend that Guardy did show out again. N's Zoroark, or N's Pokemon, N's Trainers. It was a surprise in the top 8. Note the list I don't believe is published as of the moment of recording, but it's a deck that I know Dean and I have been kind of keeping our eye on, because I really do think the trainer cards of N are stronger than what people are giving them credit for. But it's good to see that it got representation in a top cut. But Dean and Glenn, are you guys ready to talk about actually organized play? Because I know we've been talking for weeks on getting ready for organized play.
Mm-hmm. That is,
Yeah.
I live and breathe organized play. I actually find it more enjoyable than playing. Not that I love playing too, but I actually find it more interesting, the running of the events, providing the space for everyone else to play.
Gotcha.
I like to tell the new parents here, I provide the venue, so I have people to play with.
And disclaimer, I have not been to an organized event since 2018. Or minus one event I went to earlier this year. It's been almost 5 years since I've been to organized play, a league, or anything like that. Since COVID, I took a step back from going to events, going to leagues, participating in leagues. So I will admit that I'm kind of out of that experience. But when I used to play and go to a league, that's what got me connected to where I was geographically. When I lived in northern Georgia, that is how I met a lot of my close friends that I still talk to almost 10 years later. It was through my league, through my organizer, and using Pokemon's research at the time to get that connection. So I know the value of these leagues and what they can bring to individuals, especially who have moved to a new area, and trying to find friends and colleagues that enjoy the same things that they do. So I do know that is a great way of growth for just the local community at the grassroots level, but also for player development as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with me and my friend group, we actually met at Glenn's league actually, and we play all the time. I was actually at Joe's house. Those who know Joe, and we were just playing some Pokemon. He actually played the Ends Zoroark box, and to make me think about building that for myself, and just a lot of the friendship that I have made in the last couple of years was because of organized play and just being able to grow with one another and being able just to meet people from all walks of life, and we're just there for one common goal and just to play Pokemon.
So Glenn, I want to start at the very low level, the kind of the intro level of organized play. Mm-hmm. So what is probably the most lowest level of organized play, and what is the kind of the central role of that within the overall Pokemon structure?
Interesting. So I'd have to go look up a definition of organized play, but essentially it's it's right there in the name, organized play. It's to organize play at the local level to get players to go to a store, a place that sells Pokemon trading card game cards, to play the game at a regular time and place. They've enhanced it over the years to add, the idea of league, and to build some expectations around league, which is casual play at its purest form, to help teach new players how to play the game, how to coordinate the matchmaking of games between players that might be too shy or unfamiliar with the local scene to otherwise find players to play with. I think I said teach the game already, and then to coordinate the trading of those cards as well, to provide a place to play and trade. That's the lowest level of organized play. A place to play for the store.
Gotcha.
Beyond that, once you get comfortable playing the game, the next step is naturally to compete, to try to be the best. And to that end, organized play also organizes the tournament structure. They provide guidelines for running tournaments in a way that gives the players a consistent experience as they play at different stores. Hopefully they'll come to experience the tournament experience similarly everywhere they go. They'll learn what to expect, what to prepare for, how the game will go, how long the events might run, so that way they have a clean, consistent experience at every organized play location that they play at.
So you said you want ultimate goal is to have a uniform experience from location to location. So from the organizer and judge side, what are some of the basic expectations that you want to provide from a player experience side that provides that uniformity no matter where in the world you are playing?
Okay, so the experience of the player is they should be able to search for and find an event they want to play at. And to that end, Pokemon has provided what they call their event locator. It's a web-based tool. You just put in your zip code, and it will show you all of the organized play events that are happening in your area, and you can sort those by either distance or by the date that they're coming from. And they tell you what kind of event it is, whether it's a regular league session or if it's a tournament, and then there'll be a block of information about what to expect for that tournament. I guess we can go in one of two directions here, and I'll let you steer here. We can talk about the tournament experience, what kinds of tournaments you might come across, or we could take it from the player experience, entering into your first tournament, what should you expect as a player in your first general tournament?
I think we should go the first route. That way we can kind of introduce what type of tournaments a player can look for, and then that can help set up what experience that they're kind of wanting to get when they go, because I know there's different types of tournaments, and the experience based on the tournament you go to is a tad different depending on obviously your experience level, skill level, and also whatever the store can provide, depending different variables as well. So let's start with what type of tournaments can a player expect to participate in?
Okay, so one word you might hear when you start learning about tournament play is the word sanctioned. It sounds official, it kind of is, but really it just means approved by the Pokemon Company. When a tournament is sanctioned, it just means that the organizer, the person putting on the tournament, agrees to run the tournament in a certain way that adheres to certain standards and expectations of the Pokemon Company. This is where you get to that, standard, consistent, clean, consistent experience across all stores. If they're taking the time to sanction the event to get Pokemon to approve it, they've agreed to run it that way. One of the main benefits of sanctioning a tournament is that you become visible in the Pokemon event locator. So anytime you see an event in the Pokemon event locator that has been sanctioned and the organizer has agreed in principle to run that event according to Pokemon standards. So some of the other things from the organizer's perspective that go into a sanctioned event is I agree to run it using the tournament format itself that Pokemon approves of. That typically means I'm going to run my tournaments using what are called Swiss pairings. Swiss pairings are a wonderful tournament invention in that everybody plays every round. So the first round that you'll play is basically random. The computer software will just pair people randomly. But after the first round, the computer software will try to pair you with somebody who has the same record as you. So if you didn't do so well in the first round, you'll be paired against somebody else who also didn't do so well in the first round. Similarly, if you're crushing it, then you'll be paired with somebody else who is doing really well. And so in that way, you'll float to whatever your natural skill level is, and not have to worry so much about being destroyed by the top level players in the event, or being bored by the bottom level players, depending on where you actually happen to fall.
Gotcha.
So with these tournaments, I go in, I'm playing a tournament, it's Swiss round. Are these necessarily what's going to help me get to Worlds, or is this me playing in a fun tournament? How does that work in what type of environment I am in? Is everything I play in going to be super competitive and I'm trying to go to Anaheim or San Francisco, or wherever the World Championship is going to be? Or am I just there to play for fun and we're just doing something just to enjoy our time?
I mean, it's Pokemon, so everything we do is for fun, right? But no, it's a great question. There's a second level of tournaments. Most tournaments are going to be sanctioned that they're in the system, and you're going to run them a certain way. But there's a separate class of tournaments that are called premier tournaments. These are the tournaments that, when you participate in them and do well in them, these are the ones that will earn you what Pokemon calls championship points. Championship points are, you need to accumulate a large number of championship points in order to be invited to the Worlds tournament at the end of each year. The number varies from year to year how many championship points you have to earn. In fact, this year we don't actually know. It's just going to be the top 100 players I guess 125 players in North America are going to earn their invitation. So everybody is encouraged to grind championship points to earn that invitation. But we do know that at the local level, there are two types of premier events that a player can participate in. We have what are called league challenges, which are the entry-level tournament, and then we have league cups, which are the next level up. League challenges will award up to 15 championship points. League cups will award up to 50 championship points. Challenges tend to run once a month, and they attract mostly local players, just looking to have a structured, consistent way to compete with each other. League cups, because of their higher championship points, tend to attract more players from around a larger area, leading to a higher skill level, more and better competitive environment.
Gotcha. And then you said there is a differential kind of in terms of what expectation for challenge versus cup. So when your league is hosting or your venue is hosting a league challenge, what should a newer player expect for that type of event?
Okay. So when you look on the Pokemon Event Locator, it's going to tell you a couple of things. It'll confirm what the format of the event is. And for a league challenge, that's always going to be standard format. Standard format is typically cards that have been printed in the last 2 to 3 years. You can check Pokemon's website or ask the organizer of that event. If you're not sure what is currently standard, they can explain to you what is standard. If you are in fact not sure what is standard, I would strongly encourage you to go to a league session before the league challenge, so you're not showing up day of with a deck that you're not sure is allowed to be played. I would hate for you to show up that day and not be allowed to play. So strongly recommend going to league first to double check your deck is ready to go for the league challenge. Once you've I lost the thread there. So what to play. So you check to see if it's standard format. They're also going to provide on the event locator a start time. That start time is when the organizer would like to actually have the event start. It doesn't mean show up at that time. So if the event's supposed to start at 6 p.m., don't show up at 6 p.m. and expect things to go super smoothly here. I mean, you as the player, me, the organizer, would expect you, the player, to show up 10 minutes, 15 minutes early, ready to play. And I'll put a pin in that ready to play because there's more to talk about there.
Mm-hmm.
But the organizer, has to deal with more than just you. We're dealing with 10, 15, 20, maybe more players here. And there's a lot of, administrivia that goes into running an event, such as keeping the software up to date, loading it with the players that are playing, working with the printer to print, the match slips and everything else that goes with that. That takes time. It's not instantaneous. We're local. We don't have access to the resources that they have at the big regional events that are equipped to handle scale. So, so you want to give yourself some time to get there early. I'll put a pin in that and see if you want to, where you want to go next. We can talk about.
I think you bring up
when you show up.
I think you bring up some really good points on the getting there early piece. I know I'm a player. I will show up like 30 to 45 minutes early for regardless of what level event I attend. Because I want to be there, because then if I have any questions, I have ample time to ask my organizer those questions. I have a deck check. I have my paperwork ready. To me, I think that's a good habit that was just instilled in me when I was younger, is to show up early and make sure you're prepared when you show up. But to expand upon that, Glenn, what would you recommend, regardless if it's a new player or a veteran of the game, what are good habits for the attendance and participation of any level event that you would like players to have?
Good habits would include leaving earlier than you think. If your goal is to get to assuming you're an experienced player and you can, walk in knowing what to do, then your goal is probably to show up hopefully around, 15 minutes ahead of the start time of the event. So that's going to require you to travel to the venue. So plan ahead how much time it's going to take to get there. Fire up the Google Maps and figure out how long it's going to take. Add a few minutes for reasons. So that way you're not, calling the organizer in a frantic, in a panic while driving down the interstate, asking them to hold the event for a few minutes because you're running late. That's not cool for multiple reasons. Not the least of which your own personal safety, trying to do this panic call while driving. But it also holds the event for everybody else at the event. Making 20 people wait for one person. Yeah, it's just not the coolest thing if you can avoid it. So
not good luck.
Leave earlier. You're ready to go. A couple of other habits: print your deck list ahead of time. There's a number of online tools that will help you do this. My favorite these days is PTCGL itself, Pokemon Trading Card Game Live.
Okay.
Hopefully you're testing your deck out ahead of time so that you know how to play it. It's really easy to export your deck list to a text file and then print it if you have access to a printer. But even if you don't, it's relatively easy to just transcribe it onto a piece of paper ahead of time so that you have the piece of paper, your deck list, ready to go.
Yeah, and I'll actually do just a side note on that. Make sure that when we do a deck list, and we can talk about that a little bit, that your cards match exactly. I know we've had some issues at some other tournaments with similar cards that were printed from different sets but that serve the same purpose, and someone did that exactly, and they did everything right. It's just sometimes we play reprints, and it's up to the player to make sure, hey, make sure I'm getting the right ones, because you don't know how the staff is going to handle that. So that is a great resource, but just double check everything before you turn it into your TO.
Yeah, the letter of the law when it comes to filling out a deck list is that the deck list should match your deck exactly. Every card, every variant of the card, if you have two different arts of the card where the two different cards have different collection numbers, then you should list each of those separately. Practically speaking, almost no one's going to give you more than a warning when and if you are deck checked. Because of the mismatched arts, they'll just politely remind you that it's supposed to, letter of the law, but because they're functionally identical cards, we're not going to penalize you. But not everyone got that message, or they're legally treating the definition of that law, that rule, a little stricter than maybe they need to, or they're treating it strict. They're taking a strict interpretation of that law. There we go.
Gotcha.
And so they may escalate that to a deck list error and give a game loss for that penalty. They are not technically wrong, albeit it is what it is. I don't want to besmirch the judge community. They're not wrong. They're just strict. So like Gene said, be prepared. You don't know if you're going to get a judge that got the message about leniency or not. So be prepared there. But the other one is regarding your deck list is that you're going to want to, if you don't have it pre-printed, it's going to take you 10-15 minutes to sort your deck and print it up by hand when you get to the venue. So if you don't have a deck list already, then add 20 minutes to your travel time to make sure you get there with plenty of time to spare to fill one out, and you're not making the organizer wait for you at the last minute to scribble your deck list in before you turn it in.
Gotcha.
So when we arrive, we turn in the deck list. Is there anything else we should bring with us just to be prepared for the tournament?
Yeah. So you're going to need to bring all of the tools you need to actually play the game. At a minimum, you're going to need your deck, obviously 60 cards. Double check that the 60 cards are correct and they match your deck list. Ideally, they're going to be sleeved. That's not a strict requirement, but you're asking for problems if you try to play with an unsleeved deck. Because of problems with marked cards, any damage on your cards could cause you problems. And we can go into talk about that a little more later. You're also going to want to make sure you have the damage counters you're going to need to keep track of the damage your Pokemon take during play. And you're going to need a burn and a poison marker to keep track if you get burned or poisoned during play.
And then
up until recently, you would have also needed a V-Star marker to keep track if you used your V-Star attack effect for the game. But with rotation, that is no longer necessary. So,
yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Is there a current mechanic right now that is a kind of a state of play tracker like a V-Star or a GX marker, but we just lost that to rotation, so we don't have that right now, but usually you would have to have a marker for that as well.
Yeah, correct. And those are the minimum. You're welcome to include a whole host of other things to enhance your personal play, to make it more enjoyable for you or to personalize it. If you're a new player, I don't necessarily recommend any of these, just because you've got enough other going on. But they might include things like ability use tokens, something that says whether you've used an ability or not for that turn. Whether other people might use an energy or supporter tracker to keep track if they've attached their energy for the turn or if they play their supporter for the turn. Others might include a notepad to take notes on what they or their opponent are doing or to keep track of prize checks. They may include a calculator so they don't have to worry about doing the math by hand, calculating damage and hit points remaining. All of those things are legitimate to bring to a tournament, but if you're not incredibly comfortable using them already, I would not recommend using them in a tournament setting for the first time. I would definitely recommend bringing those to League and practicing with them, making sure you're very comfortable using them, because if you do get in trouble using them, if you lose the state of the game, then that is your fault, and you would be penalized accordingly for relying on these tools, and then losing the state of the game because of them.
So you mentioned a notebook and a calculator. So when I played, calculators were not allowed. Has that been a rule change in the last couple of years?
Yeah, you are allowed a basic calculator. As long as it's a calculator that doesn't have a note-taking function, a calculator is allowed.
And then for note-taking, it's 1 page per match, right? So one per best of 3 match, depending on the format you are playing?
Yes, so there was I was party to a little bit of controversy at the regionals a few weeks ago in Atlanta, where a player was, well, first of all, they were starting off with a non-clean page, and that was a clear violation. So the rule is you have to start with a clean page with nothing pre-written on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if the player had just flipped the page and had a clean page, there would have been no disagreement there. But that did open up a second question that, the player has a notebook full of other stuff. What's to stop them from flipping back to a previous page and looking at previous notes? Because the notes that the player is taking are not public information. The opponent does not have any expectation of being able to look at those notes. So other than observing the behavior of how they're flipping through the notebook, it could get a little bit weird as to whether they're attempting to cheat or not. I don't know how you would cheat like that, but still, it got a little squirrely there.
Gotcha.
Having that conversation. So what I would strongly recommend is using just a single sheet of paper. Then there is zero confusion as to what you're doing, or use one of those e-paper tablet type devices where it's just you can use a stylus on a special, it's a piece of paper, electronic stylus. There's a word for that, and I'm blanking on it right now, but those are also acceptable because they don't store anything, and you can just clear the page and move on.
Yeah, I talked to some players at the major level when I experienced my opponent doing that, and I'm like, hey, can you show me how this how does it work? And he showed me, he's like, Larry, they press a button and it deletes everything on there. As you said, it doesn't save anything. And he was like, yeah, and the best part of it, I got this for like $3-4 on Amazon. So there are cheaper options out there. Obviously, you can go pen and paper route, but if you're looking for something where one is cheap, two, it's pretty thin and really easily carryable, that is a decent option if you're looking to go a little beyond to your preparation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the last one here really deals with respect for yourself and respect for everybody you're going to be playing against and the other people in the store. First and foremost, what should hopefully be the bare necessities here: shower, deodorant before you show up, and avoiding drinking and any herbal enhancements beforehand. they never lead to anything positive going into an event with other people, especially when it's a competitive event. So just take care of yourself beforehand and show up. It's a sign of respect for you, the players and the people around you, that you don't stink.
Yeah.
And aren't going to be aggressive or abusive.
Yeah, I've actually was a part of a cup when I played where someone did show up for top cut inebriated, and it was a conversation where as the social piece, we kind of took it away from the TO's hands. We kind of went to his buddies, said, "Hey, he's in no condition to play. He shouldn't be in the store." There was minors present. It was more of a social pressure kind of piece where we're like, "Hey, we as a player group, we should have higher standards for ourselves. We're a representation of Pokemon company," and he ended up his buddies just took him home, and he ended up just dropping out from the top cut because of that. But we made sure the TO didn't have to put his hands into that. It was more of we knew each other enough socially where we could pull the social group aside and be like, we need to make the right decision. We don't need to make this a tournament decision. We need to make the right social decision. And the best decision for him was he needs to go home and just sleep it off. So I definitely have seen that. As much as it sounds weird that Glenn, you had to bring those exact options up, it does happen, and people do make poor decisions at times.
Oh yeah, it happens. It's fortunately relatively uncommon in this community. Pokemon is a really relatively clean community compared to some other ones, but still, it happens. So just be aware. It's a bit of a blessing that the biggest problem is probably deodorant in the Pokemon community, which even then isn't that big of a problem. But still.
Yeah, it's the meme in all TCGs, right? It's like, make sure you pack that in the bag somewhere.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about player expectations. We talked about league challenges a little bit. Can you, or even Dean, because you play more? Again, I haven't gone to a real event in like 5 years, except for the one I did for our birthday this year. What is the biggest differences between a league challenge and a league cup, and what should a player do to make that transition between the two different events in terms of like maybe a graduation of, all right, I've gone to 3 or 4 challenges, now I'm ready for a cup. What should a player expect with that jump in difficulty?
So I'll speak from the organizer judge perspective here, in that the player should expect rules to be more rigidly enforced. A challenge, and in theory, a challenge is supposed to be held to the same standard as a cup. But just because of the nature of who plays in league challenges versus cups, speaking for myself as a judge, I tend to de-escalate more than I would at a cup. So if a player draws an extra card, well, that's probably not a great one here. If they forget to draw their prizes and they do a search. At a challenge, depending on who's playing, what their skill level is, I might de-escalate that from a double prize penalty to just a warning. Whereas at a cup, I'm going to hold you to the standard of the cup and the fact that bigger prizing and more points are on the line here, and I'll go ahead and award the double prize penalty as the tournament guideline expects. At the challenge, I will explain that I am de-escalating it, but if this was a cup, or that the penalty would be what it would be, and to work on their play accordingly.
Yeah, I would agree on the player perspective too. Cups are definitely held to a much higher standard. I definitely would advise play in a couple challenges first, get to know what it's like to really do a local competitive game before maybe stepping up to the larger cup level, because there is a lot more on the line and people will be a little more stricter on how they hold their opponents to the rules and when they call for judge calls, and just the overall like attitude of a player is much different even at just a local level, and you want to make sure you're respecting your opponent appropriately. Not saying that a challenge like, oh, we can slack off more, but you tend to play with more of your friends in the challenge level because it's the people you see generally every single week, versus a cup. Like, we get people traveling all over the state, if not across several states, just to get these points because they're trying to get, there's a bigger mean at the end of the road versus at the challenge level.
Gotcha.
A
And
couple
then,
of
go ahead.
Yeah, a couple other things I would mention here from the player's perspective as well. League challenges are going to be Swiss only, and because of the size of the number of people that tend to attend, they're going to be generally shorter, smaller events. Cups, because of the larger pool, you're going to have more rounds, and you're going to have a top cut if you're, doing well enough for that to matter. Swiss, as mentioned, is everybody plays everybody during Swiss. Top cut is a single elimination format. So after a certain number of rounds of Swiss, based on the number of players, you'll enter either a 4-person single elimination tournament or an 8-person single elimination tournament. Tournament's not the right word. Bracket. To decide who's going to be the first place, the best player of that particular League Cup. Those top cuts are always going to be a best of 3, so they're going to be at least an hour long to play through them. So significantly more time, significantly more mental energy to play in the cup, and especially to do well. And you can expect bigger prizes as a result of all of that effort, including the coveted League Champion League Cup playmats that you get if you're first place in your age division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an important difference between challenge and cups that you brought up, Glenn, was the best of 1 versus best of 3. Challenges generally, I'd say the word generally, are best of 1s. I have heard stories about best of 3 challenges, but they are few and far between. But with the cup, especially when you make the top cut where you get to the single elimination bracket portion, it does change from best of 1 to best of 3, and that does change your play style. It does change how you kind of think about your time management, resource management, and because you have a whole nother factor of trying to get 3 games in a 60-minute time frame versus 1 game in during about a 30-minute time frame.
Gotcha. And then I guess my last question. I'm always intrigued in the evolution of gameplay and different things like that. I know it's, like I said, it's been 5 years and the game's changed so much in that time. What has been stuff that you've noticed over your time as a judge that you've either been impressed by, or you would be, this is a cautionary tale, don't fall into these traps? What would be kind of like, out of the wealth of experience, things that you want to point out for players to either avoid or to grab onto?
I would remind players why they're playing. That they're playing for fun, first and foremost. Yes, you want to win, but we're not in the habit of exploiting every possible way of winning. I'm thinking specifically of rule sharking, or trying to exploit the letter of the law to your advantage at the expense of the spirit of the game. And it's actually against the rules to do that. And for the most part, the Pokemon community has, embraced that mentality here. You'll call out a bad play, but you won't necessarily call them out if they're taking 16 seconds when they're only allowed 15 seconds to take a game action, or if they, started to lift a card but didn't see it, and it's right there. You can clearly see it's not being seen, but you call a judge because they've touched the card that they're about to draw, and trying to get them for drawing an extra card when they clearly weren't drawing an extra card. Those kind of shenanigans are frowned upon, and should not be tried. And the judging community is generally aware of those tricks and on guard for them. So don't try to win at all cost. Try to win, play hard, play well, but don't try to fall back on legal trickery to do your winning.
Yeah, I know. I have a situation in my head when you talked about that, when you start talking about rule sharking, or lawyering is another way I've heard that being described as, where I was sitting next to a player at a tournament, and he was just raising his hand every 45 seconds, every minute and a half. And I just turned to him. I know this is not within the spirit of the game. I go, are you going to let your opponent play the game, or are you going to have the judges hear the entire game? And I know, as another player, you're not supposed to intervene within another match, but it was one of the things that actually affected me and I was getting bothered. I wasn't even the opponent. And it was one of those, I know you said the players are really good about not doing that, but there's a way to advocate for it, kind of call people out. I think there is that piece a part of the culture of making sure people understand that that's not okay, on top of the judges probably professionally saying, look, this needs to stop. But it's, I don't know, to me, it feels like that's more of a social pressure that we should be able to advocate and control our own culture and not have to force the judges into that position. Because I felt bad for his opponent, because his opponent clearly got flustered. And it affected the rest of that match. Like, I could tell he was making misplays because he was afraid to make a mistake at that point.
Yeah, it ruins the experience of the game. So, you know, this one player trying really hard to win has not just beaten their opponent, but they've ruined the experience. They're going to just walk away with a really bad feeling about this event, and very likely never come back to another one. And that's terrible. We don't want that kind of player in our events. You know, we want healthy competition.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's really the player's responsibility, like you said earlier, to keep the state of the game going and flowing. And we shouldn't need to get the judges involved on little things like, oh, I'm about to play a second supporter on accident. It's like, oh, well, no, you already played a supporter for turn. Let it be that. We don't need to get judges involved. As long as we stop it before they do the actions, there's no harm, no foul. Like, this is a friendly game. Like you said, we're here to have fun. Like, let's just keep the game moving, help our opponent out, making sure they're not doing anything to break the board state of the game. Obviously, mistakes happen, things happen. We have to get the judges involved. That's why we're here, is to help rectify situations and make sure the board state can get back to where it was before the error was made. But from player to player, let's just help each other out, get the tournament going, because like sometimes at these local levels, we only have one person doing everything. And if we're waiting forever on that judge to come to help us because they're in the middle of doing something else, especially when it could have been prevented, we can help keep the tournament flowing just as well. And it's just as our responsibility as the staff responsibility to keep tournaments going.
So, I mean, Glenn, you've answered all my questions. I've always loved seeing the other end of the table. Players walk in on a certain level of expectations, and I thought with everything today, you've done a really good job to remind us as players what we need to prepare for to make your job easier, to give us the best experience possible.
Yeah, I got two other thoughts. Since you mentioned stuff noticed over time. The first one would be how drawing an extra card is handled as a penalizable offense. Back in the day, it was probably right around the time you were stopping playing. Drawing an extra card would have been a warning for the most part the first time it happened, especially if you can identify what card it was. You would reveal a card, shuffle it back in the deck. Reveal and shuffle was the fix. The penalty was a warning the first time it happened. The example would be, you're just drawing your top card, top card to start your turn, and you actually drew two. Two got, the card got stuck together, so as it were. Or you played that Iono and instead of 6, 7 came along for the ride. That was a warning. Pokemon felt that was being abused a little too aggressively. Because the penalty was just a warning, and it was really difficult to track that over time, to escalate if it became, if you were doing it multiple times in an event. So they changed the way that's handled, and that is now a fairly strict, fairly obvious double prize penalty. It's a major error as opposed to a minor now. So, kind of falling back on what Dean had said there about trying to fix it yourself. That extra card probably should not be fixed yourself, because even though most of the time it's going to be an accident, the penalty there is not there necessarily to fix the game state, but it's to incentivize the behavior of being more careful when drawing that extra card to avoid that mistake. That's one of the few instances where Pokemon's trying to actively disincentivize the behavior with a perhaps harsher than necessary penalty, given the nature of the offense.
Gotcha. I never thought of the penalties and how they're divvied out or kind of interpreted as a desensitization of a behavior versus a correction of game state. As a player, you're always thinking game state, board state, game state, board state. You're not thinking of long-term behavioral change that I shouldn't do this because of a DPE or anything like that. It's definitely hearing it that way is a very different perspective than I've ever really heard it before, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of the exception to the general rule. The philosophy in the Pokemon community is you penalize based on the damage to the game state. If you shuffle your hand into your deck, there's no way to recover that. That is a broken game. It's a game loss. If I draw an extra card and I can see that card, I now have information that I shouldn't have access to. Even though the game may not be broken, I still have that information. I can't put the information back, so it's not completely fixable. It's a major. But if it's completely unwindable, I play the second supporter, but before anything happens, we fix it, we call it back. No harm, no foul, leave it at a warning, right? That extra card, though, is the exception because of its potential for abuse and Pokemon's desire to disincentivize.
Gotcha.
But yeah, don't break the game, and the penalty will be lighter, except when you draw an extra card.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for all this sound advice, helping our players get ready for their first tournament. At time of recording, the 2024-2025 season is about to end. We only got another month left in this season, but we strongly encourage, if you have not done local competitive play, find a league where you're at, get involved in a local store where they do casual play or even competitive play weekly or bi-weekly or whatever their schedule is, and use this as a nice jumping point, because this is a great time to practice these skills, to really get to know like how to make a deck list, how to act in a tournament setting, what to bring to a tournament. That way when the new season starts in, I'm assuming, July or August, you're ready to go, you have an advantage on that. But at the same time, if you just found us later on, or you're just interested in playing later on, there's no bad time to start playing the game in a either competitive or semi-competitive way. Like, we are always open to having more and more players coming into this community.
Yeah, you're going to get prizes either way. It doesn't matter if you're going to go to Worlds or not. In fact, the odds are you're not going to Worlds.
Yes.
So try not to make that your end game for playing, your reason for playing the game, because that's insanely ambitious. Have you guys talked about Ace Trainer yet on the pod?
We have, because the younger one among us is trying to be Ace Trainer for the season, because he is actually within touching distance.
Nice. Yeah, so the Ace Trainer is something you can earn with nothing but locals. You don't have to travel outside of your local area. You can totally earn that just with cups and challenges. So,
actually, I think it's perfect math to do it if you just if you max out on your cup and challenges.
It's 200, right? So cups alone should do it. If you're
your best finish for cups should be 4, right?
Yeah.
4 for cups should get you the 200.
So
yeah, and that's a far more achievable goal and doesn't require travel.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to start. Set a kind of more achievable goal when it comes to the competitive realm. I know every season I've kind of like trying to up my goal. Last season I got 100 CP. Now I'm going for the 200. Know yourself. Know how you are comfortable with your playstyle, and just go from there. And if you have any questions about what does it mean to go to a tournament, play in a tournament, always ask your local professor. They're there to help. They're not always there just to run the tournaments. They're there to educate and make sure you're prepared and see you grow as a trainer.
So, one thing. So now, Glenn, you said very early in the beginning that you love playing, but you also love organizing. So, as part of inviting you back to the podcast, we did ask, what deck would you want to talk about? And I played around the deck for about 2 hours last couple of days, and I thought the deck you brought was absolutely amazing. And I know you mentioned you saw the Poison package full out at your Challenge and Cup over the last week. Was the Poison package you're referring to this deck, or was it something else?
No, the poison package refers to a combination of the Pecharunt to increase the damage, as well as the Brute Bonnet with the ancient tool attached to leave your opponent poisoned. And with that package, you can do a lot, including donk on the first turn, going first even. And I watched that happen twice at the Cup. 2 different players managed to pull it off.
Okay.
And,
I was like,
get a donk during Swiss.
I was gonna say, if the same player pulled that twice in a 4 to 5 game round night, that is like, okay, that everything's going your way.
It's not impossible. I can say that from experience.
Yeah, it happened twice, 2 different players, but still. But no, the deck that I'm talking about uses the Pokemon Accelgor. It has what's known as a hit and run attack. The idea is that you attack, do some damage and something else, hopefully, and then that Pokemon retreats back to the bench. Not retreats, it switches out to the bench, and then you can put something else in the active spot to sit there during your opponent's turn. What's really cool about this Accelgor is it does a decent amount of damage at 70, but then it also leaves your opponent poisoned and confused. And so, one of the obvious partners to pair with that is the Pecharunt still. So you poison your opponent, and then the Pecharunt comes up and takes its place. And because the Pecharunt's active, it's going to do an extra 5 damage counters to that poison Pokemon, putting 6 damage between turns, which is not nothing to sneeze at. And your main attacker is now sitting on the bench, relatively safe from harm, so you can keep reusing them over and over again. This deck harkens back to one of the early decks that I started with back in the black and white area, which was another Accelgor deck that actually had the attack run, and that one did I want to say 40-50 damage, and that was better than Confused, with the downside of having to shuffle that Pokemon card back. So it was interesting, the challenge if you're asking those back, how do you play? This one, this deck is a hot mess, and I'm surprised it works as well as it does. With all of it, like a poison with a lot of options.
It feels like a beer deck. You're like, oh, I want to play Accelgor, but there's a lot of cards to fill the list up. Like, I'm looking at so many other cards.
And any specific one that's probably is, and you can probably find it. So the philosophy of a rogue deck that's definitely not going to win any major tournaments, but is a lot of fun to pull out for surprise. Probably take time to 5%. That gets so a ton of fun at League where I like to play those backs.
Yeah, I remember and Yendo or playing against other players at the and you just playing a whole round, and he's actually a competitive, and he's just and we're trying to see how can he win. So it's really cool to see this type of deck going. Granted, you have a lot of experience with it was a newer player you were playing against, we're trying to show them sometimes you go against these weird decks that may seem like a hot mess, but once in a while you get lucky, and trying to show them how can you play around a deck you're never expecting. And that's one thing I love about the decks you bring, because you and me, we always talk about these weird decks that we're playing, and you are definitely the king of doing that. We went to a cup together, and you brought a Serena EX deck.
Serena, yep.
And you actually did fairly well with it. You and me were both at 2-2 going into the 5th round, where you faced off against each other with it.
Yep, but of course you know my weakness, and that you know how to play it. You saw it once before. Yep.
And I think it goes back to what we've always talked about on this podcast. I know Glenn is like the godfather of this podcast. I know he is the reason why you wanted to do this, Dean. I know that because you and I've had abundant conversations about the spirit of this. But Rogue, to me, the greatest value to a Rogue deck is that surprise element. Where if it's no longer a surprise, you no longer have your fun advantage. Like that one turn of advantage can put you into a much better position than you playing a Gardevoir that everyone knows what the list is, or you playing a Dragon Ball that everyone knows how to play. You just pulling something out from your back pocket, be like, all right, can you figure this out before I know how to beat you? I think that is the quintessential rogue strategy, and I love it. And I think that's something that more players should try to embrace because, to me, I think it makes you a better problem solver. It's a better player mechanic. It helps to develop different types of skills instead of just copying what everyone else does.
Yep, hard agree. I can net deck with the worst of them, and I'll be happily, I'll be right there in the bottom tables with my net deck, as I will with my rogue deck. But one of them is going to be a little more fun than the other.
Yes.
Exactly. So, well, thank you. We'll have the deck list in the show notes for this, and also be on the lookout for our showcase video. It'll be really fun to watch the Accelgor, because to be honest, I actually tried this deck weeks ago. Not this version that you created, Glenn, but I tried another version because I'm like, oh, this is a really fun concept. I couldn't get it off. And then when you sent it over to me, I'm like, oh man, I'll try this Accelgor deck, and then you pulled it off at challenge like 2 days later. I'm like, yeah, we're doing this Accelgor deck for sure. It's fun enough. I think you actually found a really nice list to go with it. But
yeah, I don't want to take too much credit here. The list, the core of the list, the 59 of the 60 cards came from PokemonCard.io. It was a community submission first.
Gotcha. And that's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
I go on different websites and I go on different lists. I'm like, all right, let me see where other people are getting their ideas from, and then I will adjust it based on my playstyle. And
I just didn't want to take credit for it or pretend that I am a deck creator, an originalist. Yeah. That is a rare skill to be able to create a deck from nothing. Not many people can do that well. So bless the ones who can, because they feed the rest of us with at least starter decks to get the conversation going.
Yes, 100% exactly on that one.
And we also encourage our listeners, like, take our lists, optimize them the best way for y'all. Let us know how you change in how it makes you feel after the change. Like, we're not the best deck creators. We always put that out there. A lot of times we're just looking at other things that, like, oh, this is a nice starting point. Let's see how it fits our play style. So feel free, take this list, watch our video for the Accelgor and see how it works on live and on the ladder. But with all that, Devin, Glenn, do you have any final words for our listeners this week?
I'm good.
Same. Other than maybe listen to this at like 2x speed to practice your pace of play. But other than that, play those sneaky decks. Oh, exactly. I stole your line. I'm sorry. I stole your line.
You're good.
There's the outro. We're done.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe to our channel. We have a goal that we're reaching for 100 subscribers. Once we hit that, we'll do a special stream with some of the decks we have featured. Maybe Accelgor may make the cut for that tournament. We'll see. But once again, thank you, and once again, thank you, Glenn, for joining us on this week. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I know I always enjoy my time talking to you at League, and now our listeners can see why, and all the sound advice you gave us, and just your willingness to improve this community. We cannot thank you enough for that.
Yes.
You're very welcome anytime.